Hey everybody, it's Dr. B. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of my channel. Thank you to everybody who's liked, commented, subscribed, shared, etc. You guys are the bee's knees. I love you. Thank you so much for all your support. If you'd like to purchase a private reading, all of the information on how to do that is in the description box below. If you have a quick question, you can reach out to me on Instant Go. I tend to respond to those pretty quickly. I respond to Instant Go questions in the morning. And so if you send something in the afternoon or the evening, I won't respond to it till the next day, but that's pretty quick turnaround time. I know there's some people on Instant Go that take, 3 and 4 and 5 days to respond. So anywho, Spirit, please use me as a clear channel for communication. May the messages that come through be in the highest good of all those concerned. Draw the sacred circle around this space, setting my ego to the outside. That only the messages that come through will be of the highest good. I call upon my counsel, guides, archangels, higher wisdom, divine love, ancestors, ascended masters to be with me. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I'm going to do the karmic situation for this week, starting today, August 6th, through this coming Sunday. Just see what's going on. I'm going to use 3 different decks. I'm going to use one of each card for each particular spot, and we'll see what happens here. What's going on? You guys know we have like 8 planets in retrograde right now, or we have like 7 planets and 1 planet in Chiron in a retrograde. So there's definitely some interesting energies happening. So I'm not an astrologer, but I can feel it and I'm aware of it. So let's see what's going on. So the first deck that I'm using is called the, it's called the Asian American Literary Review. Honestly, I saw it in the store and I was like, this is very interesting. And so this is the major arcana in the traditional tarot, but it has its own description. So the connective energy between them right now is we have the shopkeeper, letting go. That's the mystical shaman tarot, and death rites. This came up, I think death rites came up last week. This is a pretty consistent message. The connective energy between the divine counterpart who's in a karmic situation and their karmic partner is, when I mean karmic partner, I'm going to say this again. I say karmic partner, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. A lot of them are. I would say that the bulk of them are, but some of the karmic partners are, or connections are unhealthy, bonds to jobs. It can be a karmic lesson that they're learning with a boss. It can be a karmic lesson that they're learning with a child, with a parent. It doesn't have to necessarily be a romantic partner. So use this information as it applies to you. So the shopkeeper card says the shopkeeper is the 11th card in the major arcana. The power flowing through them is dime candy, saladitos, and pickled pig's feet, the power of the sky and the sweet. Those who seek their guidance learn that they must also feather dust for answers. Sometimes mistaken for the model minority, the shopkeeper is shrewd at tax time. Though the most familiar image of the shopkeeper is that of the push broom, this image does not mean swift change. This card is often associated with community, which is a necessary and honest indicator of how bad things are, while also an example of the redemption in small talk, lottery tickets, and cold beverages. Like the scholar whose meticulousness has them bent over in their dusty books, the shopkeeper in the tarot can be a warning sign that you too are a slave to your obsessions. The shopkeeper is a long, hard look at our hoarding selves. They indicate a memory that is inventory as well as invention. The shopkeeper urges you to examine your purchases and how they have bought you back into the neighborhood of your innocence and guilt. The shopkeeper symbolizes the knowledge of bargaining, but does not restrict you to shortchange yourself. They remind you to look for the friends, the bodegas, the corner stores in your heart. Okay. I love this deck. Is really cool because again, you guys know how I feel about inclusivity and diversity, and I've never heard bodega used in another deck. But anyway, so this is talking about, again, it said obsession, hoarding, this is an energy that is not it's not freely, it's not given freely and received freely. It's very much like it's bondage. If you know a shopkeeper, if you know somebody who's ever owned like a store, people think that it's like all rainbows and butterflies, but it's really difficult actually. It's for a lot of people. It requires long hours. It requires a lot of participation. I think about the shopkeepers, the people that I know locally, like in my neighborhood, that own corner stores and things like that. And it's like a family-owned business, and 2 or 3 people in the family are there from open to close, and it's like, you know, a lot of work, a lot of investment. And it's so, for a lot of times it feels like, for those of us looking like, oh, it must be nice to own your own business, right? But for a lot of times it's bondage. It's actually a ton of work, and it's actually keeps you bound to that. You don't get to go on vacations. You don't get to do, you know, you're always required to be there. And so this situation is, it feels like somebody or both people are feeling like trapped, feeling a sense of bondage, that they're not necessarily free to come and go as they would like to. So there is definitely some interesting energy around that hoarding energy. Hoarding to me is like piling up and not letting go. You know, you think about it in terms of like extreme hoarders or whatever. I know there's a show or something about that. I don't know that. I've never watched it, but it's people who like pile things up and don't let things go. That can also go with energy and with people, where you hoard somebody's energy or hurt somebody's love, where it's like you feel like if you let them go, then it's going to be, you're never going to have anything again, or, you know, it's just not a pot. It's a clinging, holding on to type of energy that's present right now. But the next card that came up is letting go. These cards are really pretty, but they're hard to see because the dark background. So I'll hold it up and see if it helps a little bit. Letting go. And this is, you know, literally, I mean, what else can we say? The energy that they're dealing with right now is a letting go. It's moving out of this hoarding energy, moving out of this energy of clinging, obsessively holding on to something that you need to move through and let go, and moving into a different energy. So we have death rights. And I think this card came up last week in one of the readings around the Karmic Partner reading last week. And it's about death rights. It's about formal goodbyes. It's like saying goodbye. We have a death right. We have a letting go card. It's the energy really is about, this energy is about letting go. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with the moon energy, the activity that's going on astrologically. Again, I'm not an astrologer, but I read articles, and so I know enough to know that a lot of this energy is about releasing and letting old patterns go. I've been feeling for quite a while that this summer was going to be paramount. I was going to say paramount. That's not the right word. Was going to be pivotal for twin flame connections, where people will be resolving karma and people will be moving on and letting things go and moving into new cycles. And so it feels like this energy is very, very present. The people in this karmic situation are very aware, is what I'm picking up, that so something needs to shift, things need to be let go. Now, whether or not they'll take action and move on that is going to be up to them. But it feels like there's at least the beginning, not the beginning, because it feels like they've been in this space for quite a while. We've been getting these cards and these messages for quite a while, so it's something that they've been thinking about. But I mentioned this before in psychology, when we talk about stages of change. The first stage of people making a change, the first part is called the pre-contemplation stage. This is where you're not even thinking about it. You don't even think that there's anything wrong or something needs to change. It's like you don't know what you don't know. That's the first stage. The second stage is contemplation. This is when you're like aware that something needs to change and you're aware that something needs to shift, but you're not ready to take action yet. People can stay in that in that contemplation stage for a long time, a really long time. I've known people who have stayed in this stage of, well, I know I need to do this, or I need to quit doing this, or I need to, and we'll talk about it and we'll think about it, research it, look at their options, all of those things for months, years even, before they actually get up the courage and the gumption to step into the next phase, which is change. So I feel like they've been in this contemplation stage for a long time. So my mind, I'm visual, so I'm going to kind of try and draw you how this is playing in my head. We've got contemplation, we've got we've got pre-contemplation here. It's like a circle, contemplation here. And it's like they've been moving along this contemplation continuum, and we're here at this point where suddenly it's going to shift. The circle will turn into change. And I feel like they're right on the precipice of making change. Okay, I hope that made sense. So what is the karmic partner bringing to the situation? First, we have the Ancestor, Retreat, and Enlightenment. So, the Ancestor. The Ancestor is the 9th card in the Major Arcana. Sometimes mistaken as purely familial, the Ancestor is of the imagination, but the historical one. Nearing the halfway point in the Major Arcana, the Ancestor symbolizes the chiasmus one tends to make between past and present when one makes sense of history. In the lower half, there is a heart. Its bloodlines look much like a nest and the shape of a bird itself. The heart symbolizes nothing but the heart. Systolic, diastolic, ventricle, aorta. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having a difficult time reading this for some reason. Note the position of this nest, especially in relation to the birds. They work on different planes. The human history one seeks so ardently to see in nature can only come perpendicular to the animist world. This card's lesson is that human life is nothing but a bundle of tales. Those who seek wise words from the Ancestor should first cover your left ear with your left hand and right eye with your right while recounting a story about an ancestor that you have never met. Then cover your right ear with your left hand and your left eye with your right while recounting a story from your ancestor that you have met. Finally, hold your tongue with both hands while improvising a story that incorporates an object from each of the above stories. One has become you. It's very interesting. What this is saying to me with this card, the message that I'm getting through this card is that the karmic partner is in a space of trying to weave together the past and the future. There's this state of trying to blend together what is known, what is unknown, trying to come into this space of learning from the past, moving toward the future, and trying to draw wisdom. This could also be, and this is just what came through, the spirit just nudged me into this, that this could be the karmic partner starting to become aware of ancestral patterns. So perhaps, and this is common for a lot of people, perhaps the karmic partner is in a space where they've had this epiphany, where they have realized that they have recreated an ancestral pattern with the relationship that they have with the divine counterpart. So it could be that they're starting to have this realization that, oh my gosh, I've married my mother, I've married my father, or I've had the same situation with every boss in the past, and now I'm having it again. Like, what's going on here? So I feel like there's some realization that's happening, that there's something that needs to be shifted. With this message, it says the ancestor symbolizes the chiasmus one tends to make between the past and the present when one makes sense of history. I really get that they're really trying to make sense of history within themselves, within their life, within their family patterns, family of origin issues. They may have just started to have this awareness that there is, what people call generational curses. I don't believe in that. I feel like it's patterns and beliefs and things that we pass on that can be changed and can be interrupted. But it feels like there's some awareness about how this person is bringing the past into the present and choosing whether or not they want to take that into the future, or if they want to move in a different direction. So we have retreat next. And retreat is, it's pretty self-explanatory to me, but I want to just dig into that a little bit more. It's like retreat means to step back. When you retreat from something, you go within. It's a turtle kind of, when a turtle feels threatened, it retreats into its shell. a porcupine puts its spines up, an armadillo rolls up and to its hard shell. That's what I feel like. I feel like the karmic partner is in a state of retreat right now. I mean, obviously because the card says that, but the imagery that I'm getting is literally someone just kind of pulling back. They may not physically have left the situation. They may not physically have gone like away for or taken steps away, but I do feel like they have emotionally retreated, that there is a sense that they have gone within. And so things may look normal on the surface. They may even be behaving normal on the surface where the divine counterpart doesn't even sense anything or isn't obviously aware of it. I feel like they are sensing something, but they're not. It's not so obvious that they can put their finger on it. It's just something they can feel. It's this sense of retreat, the sense of pulling back, saying, okay, now I'm ready. I'm kind of starting to get into a space where I realize I need to get my ducks in a row. I need to get prepared for some changes that need to come. And this could be changes such as leaving the relationship. It could be changes such as saying like, I will no longer remain in this relationship or in this situation if these conditions aren't present. Not an ultimatum, healthy boundaries. This is somebody who's really taking the space to kind of figure out what it is that they want. And if they don't want to continue to recreate the past energy and carry it into the future, they're recognizing that there's some things that they need to clean up. There's some, backyard energy that they need to resolve. And then we've got enlightenment, inspiration, epiphany, and innovation. To me, this is saying that the karmic partner is in a space of really getting awareness. I mean, really, I feel like this sense of an aha moment. It's that we've all had those moments where suddenly something just comes clear. It's like the pieces just fall together in our minds, and it's like, oh wow, suddenly now I understand. Like I realize why I've been perpetuating this pattern and why I've been doing this particular thing for so long is because of X, Y, and Z. Like I recognize personally, this was in my journey. I'll share that a number of years ago, there was I tended to attract a certain type of romantic partner, and I do this thing. I've done relationship coaching for quite some time, and one of the exercises that I do is identifying the similarities. There's a whole process for it, but the long and short of it was that I did this process for myself. And I was looking at it and I was like, well, where did that come from? Where did I learn that? And I had this epiphany. I was like, I remember where I was when it happened, and it all made sense. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, I get it. And it was like that awareness gave me the information that I needed to be able to make different choices and to interrupt that pattern. And I feel like that's what's happened with the karmic partner. There has been this awareness, like something has shifted, some awareness has come, and they're like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. And they're deciding whether or not they want to continue with that, or whether they want to interrupt that pattern and do something different. And I feel like they're really leaning toward doing something different. So let's see what the what the divine counterpart is bringing into this. We've got the hangman. The hangman is the body rent asunder by the violence of empire, racism, patriarchy, and ableism. As people pass him hanging there, they thank God that they are not him until they are. Then they begin to think differently about this hanged body because theirs is being hoisted and harnessed to their own suffering born of empire, racism, patriarchy, age, everyday violence, bodily failure. Then they realized that she who seemed so alone as she hangs there was in fact not so, but instead hung there as a witness to the violence, but not fully consumed by it. Because even here in the cataclysm of her hanging, another witnesses her and her suffering, and thus liberates her suffering from an altogether different, dare we say, utopian impulse. And so now they who are also being hanged can join in a community of sufferers, a brotherhood and sisterhood who bear the marks of pain, who invite others into solidarity so that when we meet our ends, we will know that we are surely not alone. Receiving this card may feel like the worst fate imaginable, but take heart, the very cosmos weeps with you. So very, different interpretation on the Hanged Man card for sure, but it resonates for sure with what's going on. Okay, then we have sacred space. And finally, wow, that death will come. I feel like some empathy for these two right now. It feels like this is definitely a challenging time, and it feels like the karmic person in this situation, boss, family member, karmic partner, whatever it is actually doing a little bit better than the divine counterpart in this space. The Hanged Man is about, they're in a lot of pain right now. Okay, this card in this situation, and in this particular deck, is not as much about like being in a space of pause and waiting and getting a different perspective. This is a card of feeling like, literally, like what the description says, like being in pain. Like people are walking by and this person feels like they're in pain and they're suffering, but they're starting, and they have felt alone for a long time, is what I'm getting. As they felt alone, like maybe they didn't feel like they could share their stories, or they couldn't share what was going on with them with the world because people wouldn't understand or people would judge them, and so they kept their secrets, they kept it within. And now they're feeling like they really want to have some conversations and be more open about what's going on, and they're starting to feel not so alone. They may be feeling the love that you're sending them and starting to realize that they're not alone in this experience where they're feeling like they're, being publicly hanged and like they're in this pain and this suffering, that they're not alone anymore. When you look at this card and it says that because even here in the cataclysm of her hanging, another witnesses in her suffering, and that liberates her suffering for an altogether different, dare we say, utopian impulse. And now they can join a community. So what it feels like is that they felt very alone. They felt like a sense of shame for a long time. Like they felt like they were the only person who had ever experienced what they experienced. They may have felt publicly embarrassed. They may have done something or engaged in some kind of behavior that exposed them publicly to some kind of ridicule, and so they felt alone and they felt ashamed. There could be some of that energy. It could be that they've been feeling like if they make choices that aren't in alignment with what they think they should do, like if they were to decide to get a divorce or something, that people would be that would make them look bad publicly. But now they're starting to understand this, that they're not alone, that this is a lot of what we're dealing with is forces outside of our own control. Now, I say that with a caveat. You can be a person who has been exposed to violence or abuse, or have had not so great childhood or whatever, but you don't have to perpetuate that behavior in your life. You can make different choices. And so it feels like they're just really in this space of having felt alone, but now starting to feel like they're not so alone, and they're ready to make different choices, or they're getting ready to make different choices. They're stuck right now because they're hanging, but they're at least aware at this point that they are where they are, because of perhaps outside forces along with choices that they've made, but they are, but things have the possibility of shifting. It just feels like right now they're understanding that they're not alone anymore. Maybe they're getting ready to share more of who they are and not feel like they need to hide so much. But we have the sacred space. This is someone who has gone within, or is going within, or has created a sacred space, or has realized that they really, really need to find a sacred space, that they need to be in a space of not being just surrounded by chaos in the world. They may have just started like a meditation practice, or they may have realized. So for some people, sacred space can be, we have a lot of people have these interesting ideas about that you can to be sacred, it has you have to burn sage and you have to walk counterclockwise 3 times, and there's a lot, and I don't disagree with that. For whatever your personal ritual is, do that is sacred to you, but that doesn't have to be the same for everybody. Sometimes people don't have the ability to sit still and do things like that, and so their sacred space can be running, or their sacred space can be going to kickboxing class, or going to take a martial arts or something. That can be a sacred space. Sacred space is literally whatever space that you carve out for yourself that is just for you, and that it's something that you guard and you protect very carefully. For some people, it's for me, for instance, it's my yoga practice. I love going to yoga. I do hot yoga. And that's one of the things that for me is a sacred space. I'll build my schedule around that. I go to therapy every week. The same time, I have a standing appointment. The only time I ever miss it is if there's some kind of family situation, like a kid's sick or something, or if I'm traveling. Other than that, everything else it comes secondary. That is a sacred space to me. And so they are creating some sort of sacred space. They could be, again, it could be like working out, it could be creating a meditation, journaling practice, whatever it is, but they're getting that sacred space and they're starting to allow that deeper wisdom to start to come through. Now, part of this is, it says that death will come. This card is about the recognition of our own frailty and our own, and our humanity. The fact of the matter is that as human beings, like our lives are fragile. We can, the future isn't guaranteed for us. We can get sick and die any moment. Have an accident. That's what happens. And it feels like they're in this space of really starting to understand that some of them may have had a health scare. Some of them may have had something that, really kind of shook them up and woke them up. Maybe they went to the doctor and the doctor's like, your blood pressure is too high, or, you probably need to maybe shed some pounds because it's having an impact on your physicality. Whatever that might be. They may have actually had a physical scare. Someone close to them may have had a health scare that really shook them up. That is one of the gifts about that. It's like, it's scary. I've said this before, but my training, my PhD, my PhD is in psychology, but my emphasis was in existential, transpersonal, and humanistic psychology. And existential psychology is we really don't focus so much on, like, we'll talk about death a lot, and that's why a lot of people will say that existential is like a dark philosophy, but it's really not. It's really about understanding that when you make peace with the fact that, I'm going to die someday, and I don't know when that day will be. If I'm lucky, it'll be, a long time from now. But either way, walking around and living with that understanding that time is precious, and that I don't have, a ton of time to just like screw around and not do anything. That when you understand, like, I could die any moment, it changes how you live. It changes how you show up in the world and what you choose to expend your energies on. There's a movie with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicklaus. Is that his name? Anyway, the You Can't Handle the Truth guy, and it's called The Bucket List. And that's one of my favorites. One of my guiding philosophies for life is like, living like you're dying, because it changes people. And it feels like something has happened. There's been some kind of an awakening with the divine counterpart in this situation, that they're understanding that, I'm going to die someday. If depending on how old they are, they may be like, they think that they've got 40, 50 years left, great. They may have longer, they may have less, depending on their age. But it feels like there's just been this awakening, this like something has happened that has shaken them in their mortality, where they're starting to realize, like, they don't have forever. None of us do. And like, how do I want to spend my life? Do I want to live this inauthentic, not, fulfilling relationship? Or do I want to spend my life improving myself and being with someone that I really, really love, and living a life that I love, living my truth? That's really, it feels like they're really in this space of understanding that. And this is all really good. It's intense. Don't get me wrong. It's intense. These are not easy or fun energies to move through. I'm sitting here talking about coming to peace with your mortality like it's an easy thing. It's not. I mean, I wrote part of my dissertation on that, and that was my own process of coming to my terms with my own mortality, and it was brutal. I'm not saying that, I'm saying it now after, retrospectively, after having gone through it years ago, that it was an easy thing, but it wasn't. It's not easy at all to come to terms with that, because if you have to look at the ways in which you haven't been living, and you haven't been authentic, and you haven't been truthful. And it causes a lot of pain that you have to deal with, but it's liberating too. On the other side of that pain is freedom. So let's look at what karma is holding them together right now. Wow. The Devil. Psychic development. And reason. The Devil. Let's see, the power flowing through the devil is delusion. In Christian traditions, the devil represents temptation and distortion, reminding us that addiction comes at the expense of individual and communal well-being. The devil in the form of the Buddhist tempter Mara is material desire that roots us in suffering. Also often associated with addiction, Mars signifies fear and the delusion that we are somehow always at the whims of external forces, doing what other people expect from us. In the religion of Asian American studies, the devil appears in the form of white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, and imperialism, social evils that not only plague our minds but constitute the contours of our lives. The devil is not in the details but the structure, and the structure shapes us with the temptation of its promises and the force of its punishment. Pay close attention to its insidious forms. When you draw the devil in a reading, ask yourself what delusions you are clinging to and how they fully deny personhood from yourself and others. The devil reminds you to look at your own agency. Not everything is out of your control. Refocus your vital energy to cultivate compassion. This is really amazing. So they're caught up, like the card said, delusion, right? There is a certain sense of not being grounded in reality. This connection has, and I've been saying this for a while, is kind of based on this shared delusion that things are okay. Like, it's like they don't, if we agree not to talk about it, if we agree not to deal with it, then we can pretend that everything is okay. But it's not okay. It's like that whole emperor's, the emperor's new clothes. It's like this connection, whatever the nature of the connection is, it's like two people walking around naked, thinking that they have the nicest clothes on. It's like that story, the emperor's new clothes, and there's like you, the divine counterpart to this divine counterpart. You're like, no, those aren't. You're the little boy in the story that's saying like, yo, the emperor's naked. Like, what the hell is everybody thinking here? That you can see the true nature of the connection, the truth of the situation. But this energy, the karmic energy that they're working through right now is, again, it could be addictions. It could be that there's that addictive energy, that codependent energy that we've talked about before. This shared delusion, but the bigger thing is recognizing that there is a choice. There's always a choice. Whenever people say that I didn't have a choice, yes, there's always a choice. The choices might suck. Don't get me wrong. The choices may very much absolutely suck, but we always have a choice. Do something, do nothing. Speak our truth, don't speak our truth. There's always a decision that can be made. And right now, there's this feeling that they're both kind of shifting their agency to the outside. Well, I don't have a choice. Like, I can't afford to raise these kids on my own. I can't afford to do this. If I leave, then financially I can't sustain. If I go, then if I leave this job, I'm never going to find another job that pays this well. So it's definitely outside things that they're allowing to control and to influence their decisions and how they go forward. But it's limiting them. And the karmic lesson that they have to work through right now, what they're working about, is taking back their power, taking back their own control, recognizing that like, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're financially bound, will it be difficult? Will things change? Absolutely, for sure. Like, it's not going to be easy. Anybody who's ever been like myself, divorced, it's not easy. It's expensive. Lawyers' fees, all of that stuff is not cheap. But it's not like, at least in my case, was it worth it? Hell yeah. Like, I would do it again 100 times over if I had to. So I feel like people need to understand. They need to understand that they are not victims. That they have a choice. Right now, they're putting all of their power in the hands of other people. Society's expectations, their past. Like, well, I behave this way because I was abused as a child. Sure, that may be true. You may have learned some maladaptive patterns and ways of being as a child because of trauma, because of abuse. However, you're not a child anymore. You're an adult, and you can do the work to heal that. And that's what they need to understand, is taking back their power. So then we've got psychic development. This is also the karma that they're learning, is how to listen to their intuition, listen to their heart, listen to their gut. No more, again, putting power outside. And I don't know what to do, and I don't know where to go. It's like, you know what to do, and you know where to go. You know exactly how to handle this if you would just allow yourself to do it. But you have to have trust in your own power, trust in the psychic development that you have. And reason, and saying, listen to advice, think clearly, use your intellect. This is like, okay, there are people, I guarantee that there are people in both of their lives that have said, whether this is, again, whatever the nature of the connection is, that has said, this is not a healthy connection. This is not a healthy, positive situation. If it's a work situation, it could be that the other employees are like, you guys have this really weird, unhealthy dynamic. Like, what's going on there? If it's a relationship, if they're like in a karmic relationship with somebody else, I guarantee that there have been people in their lives that have said, this is not good for you. This is not a good situation, and they've been not listening to it. And so now it's the karmic energy that they're working through right now is learning to listen to other people, learning to listen to reason, tuning into their own intellect. It's like their minds, their intellect is telling, it has shown them this is not a good situation. They realize it, but they have to work through all of these energies around feeling like they're victimized, feeling like they don't have power, feeling like society has dictated their expectations. Like that's their energy, their karma to work through right now is, to take back their power and to use their, always listening to advice. Like if you're getting good advice, listen to it. If somebody is repeatedly, if you keep hearing the same thing from people, this is my thing. If I have 3 or more people that say the same thing to me about like something I'm doing, then I'm like, okay, that's something I need to listen to, right? Because they're not all wrong. And that's the thing, is that takes a certain level of humility to be able to understand that if you keep getting the same message from people, if people keep saying to you, this behavior is present, and you keep saying, no, it's not, well, you're not going to grow. And that's where they've been like, people are like, this connection isn't healthy for you, or this person doesn't treat you well, or, whatever. And they keep saying like, oh, it's okay, whatever. They're going to learn, they're moving through that karma. They're learning they're getting to this space, and the karma they're moving through right now is recognizing that sometimes people can see things that we don't see, and they're starting to listen to their reason and starting to get out of the, moving out of the emotional tie and moving it more and starting to use their wisdom. So where is this connection headed? So we've got the Ghost, Divine Timing, and Burnt by the Sun. Interesting. So the Ghost says, the Ghost is and is not a card in the major arcana. Sometimes misinterpreted as a demon, a haint, or death, the Ghost is your ancestor and your shadow. The Ghost is me, hungry, I am your history. I smuggled myself across the Pacific, searching for my husband and hoping for welcome. Instead, the sea swallowed me. Women burned money for me, offered me oranges and biscuits, bribed me to stay away. They didn't understand that the border between past and present, like all borders, is illusory. Their prayers came to me as joss smoke, which I gathered into the guise of a body. Now you glimpse me out of the corner of your eye, and I look like the echo to a memory, a woman in a book you once read, a dust speck of a way of life now long gone. Don't you know I am always walking among you? I made you a person of this land. I made you a person... Yeah, I made you it repeats itself. Sorry. Okay. Dear children, you who would forsake me, erase me. Dear children, born of my cravings, who would call me just a story. You children of the future, who would proclaim the past over and irrelevant. I demand you to answer me one question. How have the forces of history brought you to this moment? So, very interesting. Very, very interesting. This is saying where this is headed is, again, we're talking about how the past is influencing the present. That this is like they're trying to deny it. They're trying to deny a lot of this connection has been in trying to deny the truth. That this Ghost, I almost get the sense that part of this is about the divine energy, that there's some divinity that is present that they've been trying to ignore and trying to deny. There's definitely some messages as that's present for around them just not understanding or having denied the impact of how they have carried the past and how they've carried ghosts from the past into the future. I really get that there's almost a sense of like having been haunted by past energies, like the ghost. And I don't necessarily believe in like haunting in the way that most people would consider it, but what I'm feeling is that, like, again, the things that we don't resolve from the past, the things that the generational patterns and behaviors that we don't heal, we carry forward. So if you have a history of addiction or sexual abuse or trauma or any of those kinds of things that, again, people would call generational curses, if you have those things present in your life and you don't do the work to heal them, then you pass them on. And this is saying that I really feel like where they're headed is that this connection is both people are really coming to this awareness of how their history has influenced their decisions. And it's like this recognition of, if I were a truly, genuinely healthy person, if I didn't have these, trauma histories or this pain from the past, how would I live? How would I be different? And understanding that is going to help them be able to shift this understanding, to no longer deny that this is having an impact, that the fact that perhaps there was, bad parent behavior in childhood that influenced the way that they behave today, whatever that might be, that it's currently impacting the choices. And it's that understanding that, like, if I didn't have all these pains, if I didn't, if I had healed these wounds, would I behave in a different way? Would I do things differently? And starting to come to peace and terms with that so that they can heal. So then we have divine timing. Divine timing is at play here. So two things. Divine timing is, a lot of people think that divine timing it's actually kind of funny, because I was meditating on that this morning. And what came through for me is that people often think that divine timing means that you just wait around for things to happen. And that's not necessarily true. Divine timing there is that element of allowing the spiritual progression to happen as it will. But there's also our part, which is we can help divine timing by doing our work and getting into alignment. It's like, if you know that there are things you need to work on and you're not healing it, you're not doing the work, then you're hindering divine timing. Whereas if you are doing the work, then you're helping divine timing. But there's definitely this space of where this is headed is divine timing is at play. It's like they may not have taken action in the past. They may not have done things in the past that needed to move the situation forward. But it's kind of getting to what I'm getting from this is that it's moving into a space where they may not have a choice anymore. Like, divine timing is at play, where things may just come up. And I don't want to say they don't have a choice, because we have free will. But we also have to recognize that just because we have free will, just because we do have freedom to a certain extent, if you're avoiding and not doing the work and not doing what needs to be done, sometimes spirit will intervene. That's when we have tower moments. And so this is saying, like, divine timing is at work in this situation. There is something that is happening, whether or not they like it. They look at that there's changes that need to be made, changes that are going to happen, and that's just what it's going to be, and that's just how it's going to go. And so we all have to trust divine timing. There are things that are going to be shifting and changing pretty significantly, and hopefully they're doing the work to prepare for it. But this is burnt by the sun. Ambition, extension, reach. This is someone, to me, this is a card of burnout. It's somebody who has done too much, invested too much, overly reached. Okay, this is a person who has definitely, or an energy, one or both people could be in this energy of, it's like they've tried, it's like setting a task that is like really, it's a very, very ambitious goal. And it's like, but this is not, trying to sit with this, because there's a couple messages coming through. That there was this really, and it feels specifically to like a relationship aspect of this connection, that they really reached far. It was a big reach. This was an ambitious goal, that perhaps, however, the vision or the what they desired from the connection. But it's definitely that that this is a situation that it's not going to be easy. It's something that they're going to have to really work for. And it's saying, like, this is when you reach really hard and you go for something that's really difficult, and that it's like that it's a hard, it challenges you, that you can get burned out by it. That you're really going to have to reach for this, okay? You're really going to have to reach for it. It's like this goal that they have reached, that they have set, whether it's like this relationship, getting married, or whatever it might be. Whatever that is, it's just out of reach right now. It's like they're reaching, they're trying, they've been pushing, they've been doing all this stuff. And it's like, they wanted too much is what I'm getting from this. Is like they wanted it too much, and they reach for it. They keep reaching, they keep going for it, but they keep getting burned. They keep getting like they reach for what they want, and then there's like they get singed by their desire. And it's like at a certain point you have to say like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this isn't how it's supposed to go. And they're starting to feel that. And I do get the sense of burnout where it's like, you know, when a relationship or a situation requires that much effort, it can be overly exhausting, and you just reach a point where you're like, you know, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't even want to continue doing this because it's so freaking hard. I keep getting burned. I keep like reaching. I keep trying. I keep putting in effort, and it's just not working. And so maybe they're starting to realize that with divine timing at play, that it is what it is. Like you can keep pushing, you can keep reaching, you can keep getting burned, or you can just give into divine timing and be like, you know what, if this is meant to be, it's going to be, but I'm not going to keep like fighting for something that is burning me every time I reach for it. So very interesting energies. It feels like there's a lot of growth happening, a lot of shifts going on, some awarenesses that are coming through, and just very interesting, challenging energies this week. I feel like this week could be pivotal for this connection. So I hope that this reading resonated. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.